There are few cars that we've driven in recent times that have been as important as the Skoda Kushaq. In fact, the success of the Kushaq and of course its cousin, the Taygun, is going to be make or break for the Skoda Volkswagen Group in India, and they've invested a lot of money, a lot of effort and a lot of time into developing their new mid-size SUV. Now, we've driven it in prototype form. We've seen the wraps come off the Kushaq, but now we are finally driving the production spec Kushaq. And because this is Evo India, because we talk about the thrill of driving, the version that we are getting behind is the 1.5 TSI Evo with the manual gearbox. Does it score? Has the wait been worth it? That is what we are going to find out today. I know we have the best job in the world and we should be excited to drive every new car, but some cars excite us more than others, and the Kushaq, it falls into that category. This is the 1.5. Production of it starts in July, so you'll be able to buy that come August. The 1.0 will be ready very soon and it'll go on sale, and you'll be able to buy it off showrooms very soon, depending on what sort of response Skoda gets for it and what kind of waiting periods are there for it. And by first impressions, I think the waiting period will be long because demand for this should be really strong. We've already run you through the styling of the Kushaq, so we won't spend any more time on it. Safe to say that on Indian roads, it looks really stunning. And this shade of habanero orange has been subtly tweaked over what we saw at the unveil to suit the Indian environment. Together with the Tornado Red, these will be unique colors to Skoda. So what does this 1.5 TSI Evo engine feel like? Is it a firecracker? Honest answer is, it's not a firecracker. It is quick, for sure. But unlike other VW Group engines, it's not that responsive to the throttle. It's not instantaneous. The responses earlier, it used to be telepathic, but now there is a slight bit of lag, a very slight, but there is a slight bit of lag. There is also a heavier flywheel effect. It has obviously been done to make it smoother and easier to drive, and also a little more torquey. And in terms of torque, there is a lot of torque and it feels very punchy. So what Skoda have done is they've given it more torque, they made it more smooth, they made it more drivable, and in regular driving you will enjoy this engine more, you will have less to complain about. And also, that is the big difference between the 1 liter and the 1.5. The amount of torque that you have, the effortlessness of the performance. So when you're driving it like a hooligan and you're pulling it in every gear, that's when you want a little more responsiveness and you want less of that flywheel effect. But if you're driving it normally, you stick it in 4th gear. So I'm at 40 right now, okay? And I'll put my foot down in 4th and it just pulls so easily, so effortlessly. Slow down to 40. I'm still in 4th gear. And once it gets above, that's 1400 RPM, it pulls easily. Now I'm at 80. I stick it in 6th gear. It's spinning at 1500 RPM. And this is good enough. This is good enough to cruise. So that is the main difference between the 1 liter and the 1.5, the ease with which you can cruise. So we enthusiasts might complain a bit, but for regular driving, this is a more sensible map for the engine. And this is what they've said also. They've done it specifically for India, and that's why it feels different from the Karoq and the T-Roc, to give it this drivability. And when you want to floor it, switch off ESP, there's this button on the touchscreen. It pulls strongly. This will be a 10-second car, 0 to 100 in 10 seconds, which is par for the course and more fun than the other rivals. That's hands down. Especially because this engine is mated to a chassis that is very capable. Dynamically, I'm driving the best mid-size SUV on the market today. So let's start with the low-speed ride quality. So for that, I should slow down, stick it in 6th gear, enjoy the torque of the engine, Now, at slow speeds, you do feel a lot of the road imperfections, and in that sense, it is a typical European ride quality. It started off when we experienced the Polo for the first time, where at low speeds, it is a little jiggly, little bit unsettled, and feels a little stiffly sprung. But as you go up the gears, as you build up speed, that's when it becomes so much nicer. So hitting a little bad patch, and at 40, you can feel it. But as you build up speed, the ride quality gets better and better, and it stays planted. So even if you hit long wave undulations, it stays settled, it doesn't float around, and it gives you a lot of confidence. So now above 80, you're hitting these small bumps, and there you can barely feel it. So earlier at 40, you can feel it, but at 80, I'm hitting a bump over here, and it stays so settled. And that's the beauty of this European ride sophistication that the Kushaq has. That is what's going to differentiate it from its rivals also. So they haven't softened it for India and made it soggy so that just at low speeds it will ride well. So even though speed breakers, you can go over it a little fast and it's not going to throw you around, but it feels nice and firm, and that gives you confidence. Confidence to push the car and to enjoy the performance on offer. All cars should have this sort of dynamic setup. But obviously, if all cars have it, then we won't appreciate it as much. But this is perfect. This I really like. The only thing that I would have liked is more weight in the steering. So now this does not have any sport mode and anything. So the steering weight is this one fixed weight. There's no sport mode where you can actually increase the weight of the steering, and it is too light. This is it's too light. In fact, I think it's become lighter over those prototypes that we drove in Goa. Even there, I said that the steering needs to have a little more weight, especially when you build up speed. But here, it's too light. This does not feel like a Skoda or a Volkswagen. And at least for the 1.5, because obviously this engine has got more power than the 1 liter, at least for the 1.5, they should have given it a little more steering heft. So this steering, no, I would give it maybe 5 out of 10. It is responsive, it goes exactly where you point it, it is precise, there is no vagueness in the steering, but it needs to have more weight. More weight gives you more confidence lets you drive faster. And okay, you should not drive fast, you should not go over the speed limit, but you can enjoy the car more, and these cars are there to be enjoyed. It's a shame that for such an important new car, we are driving it over here, not on our regular driving roads, which are actually really nice and pretty these days, but we're just confined to this because we have only a day and we're not getting the cars in Pune. So it's a shame for such an important car, and it's also manufactured very close to our home base, but yet we have to come here to drive it. But anyway, it is what it is. What we need to talk about, okay, we've talked about ride, we talked about handling, we talked about the performance, we talked about the engine. We have to talk about the interiors. So for that, I'll pull over and let's talk about this, because if it has to outscore the Creta, the Seltos, all of that, it has to be loaded, it has to be really comfortable, and it has to give you everything that those others give you and more. Now, interior quality is a very big aspect, and Skoda, they've never skimped on quality of the interiors, have they? So whatever you touch and feel is very high quality. This steering wheel is almost exactly the same as what is there in the Octavia, with these nice knurled knobs for the volume, for this control out here. So it actually is nice. Some people don't like the design of this 2-spoke steering wheel, but then styling is personal, and I think it looks quite good. What am I looking at? I'm looking at analog dials. Now, the Volkswagen Tiguan, that's going to get a digital cockpit, which is going to be the key differentiator between the two cousins. Personally, I like analog dials, but the market is moving towards the digital cluster, and that is something that people are going to point out in the Kushaq. Personally, again, I don't have a problem with it. Just the MID, the multi-information display, that seems like 5-10 years old. This is something we've seen on old Skoda, so that should have been improved, especially in terms of the graphics and all of that. As for the infotainment, it's a 10-inch infotainment, and here I have no problems at all. It looks good. This whole floating kind of arrangement has been done well. Plus, it is well in your line of sight. It's not too high up. It doesn't obstruct visibility. So the positioning is very good. The accessibility is good. It has got wireless CarPlay, which is a very, very good thing, which is something that I really like. Plus, it has got a wireless charging pad, so you don't need cables inside the car. If you're using cables, you get USB-C slots in the car. So this is done well. It also has the Skoda Connect app. Now, in terms of features, it has maybe half the features that the Hyundai Blue Link offers, but Skoda says that the features that Indian customers actually use are all there. So like geofencing, tracking, all of those things, the real-time information, all of those things you can do with this. It also has a valet mode. So if you've given it to the driver to park, or if you've gone to a restaurant, given it to the valet to park, you can see what he's been fiddling around with, even if he's opened the boot and all that. So that is a good touch. Now the seat fabric, I pointed out in the prototype drive that did not feel too good, but here it is sorted out. It feels good. Plus it has seat coolers for both the driver as well as for the passenger. Other things that are important in the Indian context, the sunroof. Now it has a regular size sunroof, not a panoramic sunroof, so that people are going to point out. And what I have to point out is that this whole roof lining, it doesn't feel good quality. This cover for the sunroof, that also, this does not feel like a Skoda. This feels like it has been done for India, and obvious signs of cost cutting are out here. On models without the sunroof, you get a sunglass holder. With the sunroof, you get a blank over here. So this, not so good. Also, other areas like the door pads, these are all hard, scratchy plastic. The way you hold the door pull is actually good, but the rest of the door is a little hard plastic. So those are small areas where you would point out that costs have been cut. The aircon, this whole panel works very well, and you don't really have to look at it to operate it, even though it is a touchscreen, because you just slide your finger over it and it works nicely. So that is good. But these buttons on top of it, this does not feel that high quality. And these vents, especially this knurled effect on the vents, that also feels too cheap. And also it has a very rough feel. These vents on the side, they feel really cheap. So too much cost has been cut over there. So there are visible signs of cost cutting, but overall I think it is very nice. I really love the design of it, the way it is laid out. I have no problem with analog dials. The infotainment works well. The driving position is great. The seats are very comfortable, really very comfortable. Plus the steering, it adjusts for reach as well as rake. Its rivals do not. Its rivals only go up and down. But here, you can pull it towards you. You can get a nice driving position. The seats, they are manual. So no electric operation for the seats. So there are pros as well as cons. But overall, if you ask me, I would give this 9 out of 10. And if I were to buy it, I would have no problem sitting in the Kushaq. Let's go and check out the back seat now. Oh, I should also point out, get a manual handbrake. Thank God for that. One of the few cars left with a proper manual handbrake. And the ESP is a button on the touchscreen. No physical button, but a button on the touchscreen. And all versions get traction control as standard, airbags as standard. On the top end, you get 6 airbags. You also get hill hold assist on this top end variant. So in terms of features, plus tire pressure monitor, so all of that is also there on the Kushaq. Now the first thing I have to point out about the back seat is the ease of ingress egress. It is very easy. It's a nice seating position. The hip point is high, so easy to get in and out of. Your phone, there is a slot in the back of the seat pocket, so easy to put your phone there, and there's the same thing in the Octavia. Now in terms of space, the front seat, the driver's seat, is adjusted to my driving position with the steering wheel pulled all the way towards me. So a very nice, very comfy and very sporty driving position. Yet I have an abundance of free knee room. This much free knee room, which is excellent. The initial thoughts on the Kushaq and the Taycan were that this is not going to be as spacious as the Creta, but we were completely wrong, because this has got a lot of space. Also, because the seats are positioned a little higher up, So there is place under the seat to tuck your feet. So that makes it even more comfortable. Honestly, for 4, it is very comfortable in here. But there is one problem, and that is width. Now this MQB platform, the wheelbase has been increased. In fact, it has gone up to the max that this platform can take, the MQB A0 platform, but it cannot go any wider. And that means that this is great for 4. For 5, it is going to be a squeeze. Headroom, there isn't an abundance of headroom, but I am 5'9" and I am comfortable and I have no problem with it. If you are going to be sitting in the middle, that is where you might have a problem. So I'll demonstrate that. So the middle is actually raised over the other two. So you're sitting higher up, and that means that your head will almost touch. So if you go over a speed breaker or a bump, and if you go a little higher up, your head, it might hit. On the sides, it is very nice, and also the seat has got bolstering on the side, so it holds you well. You get this snug, comfortable feel. I think for 4, this is an excellent cabin. Very well laid out. You get 2 USB-C ports. You get aircon vents, but you don't get controls for the temperature, so you can't adjust the temperature from here. You get an armrest, and this armrest is nice and soft on the edges, so even if you rest your hand here, it's not going to eat into it. And you got 2 cup holders here. So overall, I think this is first rate, really good. You won't feel claustrophobic in this. You will enjoy this cabin, honestly. It drives really well. It looks really cool. The engines, they are powerful and enthusiastic, but there is no diesel, so that is that. No diesels, boo-hoo. The space inside is good for 4. It is good and comfortable for 4. The equipment levels are good. Well, they are good enough because there are some areas that we would have liked it to be better, but it is good enough. Ultimately though, it will all be for nothing if Skoda can't price this right. And where do they have to price it? Well, they have to undercut the bestseller in this segment, the Hyundai Creta. If they do that, well, Skoda then definitely are onto a winner.